Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to goo.gl Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is Rakdos Pirates for Raffles of Ixalan Standard. So last week we talked about Is It Pirates based on some voting on Twitter, and today we're going to talk about Rakdos Pirates and get to Grixis Pirates in the near future. Talking about Rakdos Pirates right now because this is probably my favorite build so far of the Pirates archetype, and it's also incredibly cheap as far as the new Raffles of Ixalan standard decks go. Not to mention that, but it's also incredibly fast and can kind of be like a glass cannon in that it can be like either super devastating or just kind of fall flat on its face. So goes the way of aggro, I guess. But of course, before I get into it, make sure to like the video if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Helps us out a lot, helps keep these videos rolling, and helps keep content flowing. But without further ado, let's get right into it. We have a 4 of Daring Buccaneer. It is a human pirate 2/2. As an additional cost to cast Daring Buccaneer, reveal a pirate card from your hand or pay 2 colorless. We do not want to pay 3 mana for a 2/2. No. We want to pay just 1 mana for a 2/2 if we have another pirate in our hand. Daring Buccaneer will most likely be our turn 1 play, if not for a Fanatical Firebrand, something like that. Like the card right here, Fanatical Firebrand, a 4 of 1 mana 1/1 Goblin Pirate with haste. You can tap it, sacrifice it. It deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So again, it has haste, so it can get in for 1 point of damage turn over turn, but you can also tap it and do 1 point of damage to either a creature on the side of the field or an extra point of damage to our opponent's face. This is really good at kind of like closing out a game if we really need to, or maybe even like removing a creature from the battlefield after it has had damage dealt to it from a lightning strike or another creature. Either way, we're all about that speed. Next up here we have 4 of Rigging Runner. This is a 1 mana 1/1 Goblin Pirate with first strike, which is also very good. With Raid, Rigging Runner enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you attack with a creature this turn. So this is most likely going to be our turn 2 play after a Fanatical Firebrand, or just a turn 1 attack, or turn 2 attack after a Daring Buccaneer has been played on turn 1. Rigging Runner coming in as a 2/2 first striker is going to basically turn the tide against the Merfolk matchup and against the Vampire matchup in the early game, and can be really difficult for our opponent to block and deal with if there is a +1/+1 counter on it. So that is all the 1-drops there. We have 12 of them. Moving on to 2-drops, we have Zev's Skyship Raider, a 2 mana 1/3 of Legendary Creature Human Pirate with first strike and menace. And of course, when Zev attacks, it creates a 2/1 red monkey creature token named Ragavan that's tapped and attacking. Exile the token at the end of combat. So this guy, or this girl rather, is going to get in for 3 points of damage on turn 3, attacking in if our opponent only has 1 creature. They may want to block Ragavan as a 2/1, but because it is a creature that kind of comes into play during a combat only and kind of exiles itself after that, they're most likely not going to block it, and so you're going to get in for 3 points of damage. Zev is always a good play on turn 2, and usually a good play in the mid to late game, where we want to be having a lot of creatures attacking out all at once. Zev helps us do that. Next up for utility here, we have 4 of Kitesail Freebooter, a 2 mana 1/2 human pirate with flying. That's already good enough as it is right there, but when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand, you choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, exile that card until Kitesail Freebooter leaves the battlefield. So this is a good card for our opponent to burn removal on, or a good card for us to kind of shut down either a control game in game 1, or maybe get some high-end removal out of their hand if they don't have the mana to play it this turn, or if it's a sorcery. I know a Kitesail Freebooter has been grabbing a lot of Sweltering Suns and a lot of Hour Devastations for me, and it's doing a lot of good work for us. Moving on to 3-drops here, we have 4 of Ruin Raider, a 3 mana 3/2 Orc Pirate with Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack with a creature this turn, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. This card is very good for us, very good at being able to kind of get card advantage once we have our cards attacking out. Ruin Raider is basically going to be a main phase 2 play for us always. The first time we play it, we're going to want to attack out with a Daring Buccaneer or Rigging Runner, and then make sure that we have Ruin Raider on main phase 2, and at the end step, we trigger Ruin Raider to either draw into a land or draw into another creature we can play out the following turn. Top decking also into a removal or a lightning strike, something like that, is also very good. And then the top curve for us for mana is 2 of Direfleet Neckbreaker. This name. Just so weird. It's a 3/2 Orc Pirate. Attacking pirates you control get +2/+0. This is basically going to be like an enchantment. I'm going to treat it like an enchantment, basically. You're going to attack out with this guy. Probably never. You probably just want to attack out with all your other creatures and in the game. Because on turn 4, when you play this guy, if your opponent doesn't have either creatures on the battlefield to stop your creatures, or either have a lot of removal on the early game of your creatures, this is probably going to be the closing end of the match on turn 4 or 5. But Direfleet Neckbreaker is the top top of our curve as far as creatures go. We have 25 creatures in total in the actual main board here. Let's move on to spells. First up, we have Removal. This is a 4 Fatal Push, 1 mana instant. Destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. And of course, Raid. Destroy the creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less, instead if a opponent you control left the battlefield this turn. So because we have such a low creature curve, we're going to get shocked, we're going to get Fatal Push, we're going to get Lightning Strike a lot, or even trade with another creature. So Fatal Push is going to be here to kind of make sure that our opponent knows that we have Removal in our hand, and we can use it against their Ripjaw Raptor, things like that. Fatal Push is fantastic at getting little like 2 mana blockers out of the way in the Merfolk build, as well as the Vampire build too. Moving on against the Mardu vehicles and Godfrey's Gift strategies, we have a Braid here. It's a 2 mana instant, deals 3 damage to target creature, and also destroy target artifact at instant speed. This is going to be a great way to get around a Heart of Kieran, Godfrey's Gift, those kind of things that we really don't like dealing with in the early to mid game. Moving on, we have 4 of Lightning Strike. This is going to be a way to end the game for us. 2 mana Lightning Strike instant deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So this could also be used to kind of shoot down a Planeswalker as well, but more often than not, Lightning Strike is going to be kind of held in our hand until we get our opponent to the point of where we can just Lightning Strike them to the face and in the game. And the last 2 spells in the main board here, we have 2 of Cut to Ribbons. This is a very good card for us since we're in the Rakdos build. It's a 2 mana sorcery, deals 4 damage to target creature, which is already fantastic. And then Ribbons is X and 2 black with Sorcery Aftermath. Each opponent loses X life. If we've been doing our job every single turn, attacking out as quickly as possible, then Ribbons will most likely close out the game, unless they have Deathgorge Scavenger or maybe a Scavenger Grounds to get rid of it from the graveyard. Either way, just using Cut alone is a great way to kind of clear the board up and get some more attacks in. It's great for utility and great for either killing a creature or ending the game. I would put more of these in here if it did say target player as well, or Planeswalker. That would be awesome too, but sadly it does not. But that is all the cards in the game one besides lands. Let's go over lands real quick. We have 4 of Dragon Skull Summit. Of course, it's a buddy land. It comes in tapped unless we control a swamp or a mountain. Taps for black and blue, red, not blue. Then we have 4 of Unclaimed Territory. Of course, this is a great card for us since we are in the Pirates build. As Unclaimed Territory enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We can tap for colorless mana, or you can add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. So we have 25 creatures. We need red or black. We're going to use Unclaimed Territory for that. Next up, we have 8 mountain, and of course 6 swamp, and that is just 22 lands, and that is the full 60 for game 1. So game 1 game plan: get out Daring Buccaneer, get out Raking Runner, get out our Fanatical Firebrand, attack out, get Carry Zev out if we need to, and then get out our Direfleet Netbreaker and end the match. So we're very much all in on the aggro plan in game 1, but what can we do in game 2 against like a more control heavy matchup, a more heavy removal matchup? What can we do to kind of slow down our opponent to hopefully kind of get that mid-game win in the aggro matchup? Let's move on to the sideboard here. We have 2 of Scavenger Grounds. This is definitely going to be here for the Selesnya build against the Round-Up Red build and the Godfrey's Gift build, where they have a lot of like graveyard interaction. We want to make sure this comes in over probably 2 mountains or maybe 2 unclaimed territories to kind of help our curve, as well as hurting our opponent in the graveyard area. Do keep in mind it does exile all graveyards, so that does mean if we have a Cut to Ribbons in the graveyard, that's gone too. So if you want to cast that first before Scavenger Grounds, I would do that indeed. Next up here, we have 4 Duress, a 1 mana sorcery, fantastic against control here. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. I feel like anytime we have black, this card is going to be in the sideboard, and for good reason. It's really good at being able to shut down Censors, Supreme Wills, disallows any kind of counter, as well as any kind of removal spell in the early game if this is a turn 1 play for us. So Fatal Push, Lightning Strike, Shock, things like that. Moving on here, I have an interesting pick here. This is Argyle's Bloodfast. It's a 2 mana legendary enchantment. We can pay 2 mana and pay 2 life and draw a card. At the beginning of our upkeep, if we have 5 or less life, we may transform Argyle's Bloodfast. And of course, Argyle's Bloodfast can tap for any mana of any color. And of course, Argyle's Bloodfast can add black mana to our mana pool, and we can actually sack a creature and add its toughness to our life total. More often than not, we're actually not going to want to flip Temple here if we can help it. We're just going to use Argyle's Bloodfast as a great way to draw some cards. Moving on here, we have a 2 of Doomfall. This is a 3 mana sorcery. Choose 1. Target opponent exiles the card he or she controls, which is good for us, and target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it, exile that card. So this is just a 3 mana better version of Duress, as well as a good way to get rid of a Scarab God, a Torrential Gearhulk if we're up against control, as we know that they're most likely only going to have 1 creature on their side of the battlefield. Moving up from this, we have Fiery Cannonade, a 3 mana instant, deals 2 damage to each non-pirate creature. This is great against a token-based strategy. There are a lot of those going around right now with the Hidden Stockpile and Oketra's Monument strategies. Fiery Cannonade completely wipes the board on their side of the board and doesn't even damage our board at all, and for only 3 mana at instant speed. That is amazing and very good. Another 2-of here we have is Lost Legacy, a 3-mana sorcery. Name a non-artifact, non-land card, search target player's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles his or her library, then draws a card for each card exiled from his hand, or their hand, this way. Lost Legacy is really brought in here to deal with any cards that we really don't like, especially the flip lands like Search for Azcanta, or even cards that make their deck. Carnage Tyrant is a hard card to deal with in the Dinosaur matchup. Of course, Torrential Gearhulk can't be dealt with because this is a non-artifact creature in the control matchup, but we can grab Scarab God, which is quite good too. In Mardu Vehicles, we grab Toolcraft Exemplar, and in Round of Bread, we probably grab Earthshaker, Kinra, Glorybringer, things like that. And the last two cards in the sideboard here for us are Vraska's Contempt, a 4-mana 2-of here instant, exile target creature or planeswalker, you gain 2 life. This is definitely coming in against a Super Friends matchup, the control matchup dealing with Scarab God, or maybe a Chandra, or even like a Liliana maybe, because that's being played now, as well as any kind of other planeswalker that we don't like. Of course, Vraska's Contempt is 4 mana, so it is kind of high on the curve for us, but it does give us some passive life gain, and that is just swell. But that is the full 75, folks. On MTGO Traders, it's coming to about 45 tickets, which is surprisingly low for what we're actually having in this deck here, and $90 in paper if you want to build it in paper, so just under 100. So game 1 game plan, of course, is to get out a land, get out a Daring Buccaneer as quickly as possible, Fanatical Firebrand, Rigging Runner, go for a Karizev or a Kaito Freebooter depending on where we're at in the match, go for a Ruin Raider, get some extra value, a Dire Fleet Neckbreaker to end the match, and Lightning Strikes, or Braids, and Fatal Pushes to clear the way for our creatures. But that is it for the full deck, guys. Let me know what you think of it. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have any suggestions for it? I know there were a couple deck lists. I think actually Saffron Olive put a deck list out with Rowdy Crew in the main board with the pirate like tutor creature. I'm not that big of a fan of those creatures, honestly, myself. I do think they have some flexibility in the mid to late game, but the random component of Rowdy Crew just made it to where I just didn't really want to deal with it at all. But I do think there probably is some viability and something to be said about the tutor pirate that does make our opponent lose 1 life for just playing out a pirate. I think that's interesting, but I do think I want to see it kind of more in practice. Whenever I used it, I didn't really like it as much because it is kind of higher on the curve, and I'd rather just play 2 more 1-drops or a 2-drop and then like hold up a Fatal Push instead rather than playing that creature. But of course, let me know what you guys think. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys on the stream or in the next video. Peace.